copywritten production of the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated and is intended for the sole purpose of informing our Recreation Center members. Any duplication, copying, transmission, broadcast, or use, including electronic and social media, is strictly prohibited without the prior written consent from the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated. Thank you for watching.
Good morning. Good morning. I call this Board of Directors meeting to order and ask that you rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to our May board meeting. I'm Kat Fimmel, President of the 2024 RCSC Board of Directors. This meeting is audio and video recorded by the RCSC staff and is available for review by the members online. Please be advised that there is no recording of this meeting by any individuals. Please put your electronic devices into silent mode. I will try to remind you at the end of the meeting to turn them back on. Our timekeeper for today is Director Foster, and please remember to keep your comments to 3 minutes so that everyone has an opportunity to speak. I'll begin by introducing the management staff. Matthew D. Lazansky, General Manager. Kevin McCurdy, Support and Finance Senior Leader.
Good morning.
Mike Riprud, Facilities Senior Leader.
Good morning.
Mike Diermeyer, Non-Golf Senior Leader.
Good morning.
Brian Duthu, Golf Senior Leader.
Good morning.
Debbie Giles, Assistant to the General Manager.
Good morning.
And Marcia Johnson, Board Coordinator.
Good morning.
We also want to recognize Alan Kleinhans, Doreen Rafferty, and Carly Young, our audio-visual engineers. We also want to take a moment to thank the Sundial staff for preparing the room for us. And I want to take a moment to welcome any first-time attendees.
Steve, is that you?
Oh, sorry.
Any first-time attendees today?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
For being here.
Welcome to our community. The first item of business is the roll call vote, roll call of the voting members of the for a quorum. Secretary Rickmeyer.
President Fimmel.
Good morning.
Vice President McAdams.
Good morning.
Director Foster.
Good morning.
Secretary Rickmeyer, I'm here. Director Ruff.
Good morning.
Director Nettesheim.
Good morning.
Director Keiss.
Good morning.
Director Borski.
Morning.
And from the beyond, Director Collins.
Hello, everyone.
Madam, we have a quorum.
Thank you. First up is the approval of the agenda. Are there any questions or comments regarding the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda is accepted is approved as written. First up is the approval of the minutes. I turned this machine off.
I can shove it in my backpack.
Okay. Are there any comments, questions, corrections, or deletions to the minutes? Hearing none, the minutes are approved as written. Next is the treasurer's report. Treasurer Borski.
Treasurer's report for May 30th, 2024. The balance of unrestricted funds as of April 30th, 2024 was $20.7 million, which includes a $2.5 million cash reserve. Restricted funds include the Preservation and Improvement Fund, PIF, and the Capital Reserve Fund, CIF. As of April 30th, 2024, PIF had a balance of $34 million, and the Capital Reserve Fund had a balance of $5.7 million. Capital Improvement Fund, CIF, received to date total $509,000. The carry-forward balance as of April 30th, 2024 was $7.8 million. This balance decreased from 2023 year-end balance of $10.4 million due to the allocation of $6.5 million in carry-forward funds towards the 2024 budgeted capital projects. The corporation operated within its budget year-to-date in 2024. Respectively submitted, Anita Borski, Treasurer.
Thank you. Are there any questions on the treasurer's report? Hearing none, the treasurer's report will be filed for audit. Next up is the management report. Are there any questions or comments on the management report?
President Fimmel,
Director Foster.
on page 3 of that document, under the heading of purchasing, there was a sentence there addressing the website RFP. I'm a little confused as if that is accurate.
General Manager?
Well, yes, it is accurate. Yes, it is accurate at that time. We had gone through the evaluation process, and we recommended to management that we thought we should have do the website. And we're going to revisit that now after some further discussions.
Okay. And then on page 4, under Human Resources, and this goes back to my days of pension management here, I guess, but talks about the 401k plan administrator. Can anyone speak to the nagging issues that were mentioned in that sentence?
Director Foster, so we use a system called Paylocity for payroll, and we have funds that are sent to Fidelity through Paylocity for 401k contributions. We've had ongoing issues with the accuracy of the feed, the integration between Paylocity and some of our benefits providers, and we're trying to work with Paylocity to correct that. We really haven't found the root cause of that, but we're finding that we have to make a lot of corrections, and we're not sure if it's an issue with the feed itself or it's a timing issue of when they get that information from Paylocity, but that's what we're working with Paylocity and trying to straighten that out.
So are we getting the employee contributions invested by the plan administrator in a timely fashion?
Yeah, the 401k feed is really not the main issue. The main issue is Blue Cross Blue Shield and Mutual of Omaha on the insurance, medical insurance, and the short-term and long-term disability. Okay. Those seem to be the main areas where that feed is falling down for some reason, and that's what we're trying to correct.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on the management report? Hearing none, the management report is accepted. Next up are committee reports. Are there any committee reports?
Yes.
Yes, Director
I attended the
Kais.
fire department meeting this week, and they noted that the concession stand inspection on the softball field has been completed, so that was a good thing. It's completed and passed. Interesting note that they had there also, they're talking about maybe we should be the Sun City Medical and Fire Department because over 90% of their calls every month are for medical reasons and very few of them are for fire. So I thought that was just an interesting statistic.
Thank you. Secretary Rickmeyer.
Morning, everybody. So the Outreach and Communications Committee is looking for additional RCSC members who have a passion for all forms of communication to join our group of dedicated committee members. If you've served on a committee or have never served on a committee and would like to contribute to the OCC, maybe this is the committee for you. Those with a passion and knowledge for all forms of communication are welcome to assist with determining which methods, paper, bulletin boards, emails, and the update to get the necessary information to our members in a timely manner. Please reach out to our new OCC chair, Chairman Nedesheim, or co-chairs, Kat or myself, if you are interested. Thank you.
Thank you. Treasurer Borski.
Okay, we're looking for members for the COC committee, Committee on Clubs. If anyone's interested in working with our clubs, we help them with paperwork issues that they may have in their club. Please let me know. I also am the liaison to two groups in Sun City. One is Sun City Community Action Network, otherwise known as CAN. They are looking for some new board members, and they're looking for some counselors. CAN is an organization that helps our Sun City neighbors with utility bills, food stamp eligibility, property tax programs. So if you have an interest in helping, let me know. They provide all the training. They're located on Coggins Drive, and I can give you their address and phone number. Also, the Sun City Museum is looking for some docents. They'll provide all the training. The summer's a good time to learn because they aren't very busy. They are located in one of the first 5 model homes on Oakmont Avenue, right by Oakmont Recreation Center. And they ask that you please call before you go because they're short of docents, they aren't always open. But I can give you their phone number and address if you're interested in that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other committee reports? Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Director Nedesheim.
I'd also like to reiterate, last month I asked for volunteers for the Technology Committee. We are still looking for volunteers. Anybody who has a background in technology, be it database, application development, architecture. We are moving forward. I'm sure many of you have noticed much of the infrastructure work that has been done over the past several years, and we're now at a place where we need to move forward to the next stage, which would be looking at how our applications integrate with our architecture, and we could use committee members who have expertise in that to provide guidance and recommendations for the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Then we will move to the Recreation Center update report by the General Manager.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here, and hello to all of you who will watch this out on the internet. Well, I guess spring is over, even though technically we got another few weeks, but I think the heat is on and we're ready to bake. At least things are a bit less crowded these days. So here's a few items you may find of interest. We intend to repurpose the indoor spa at Bell Rec Center, and we're going to seek member and staff input as to what the best use of that space would be. Not only was the repair cost very high, perhaps as much as $1 million, but it wouldn't fit with the board's philosophy that we don't want to invest in indoor spas anymore. We want to, think about spas on the outside of the buildings. Second, a temporary desk will be at the Fairway Rec Center soon. The electrical and communication lines have been installed, but rather than wait until we get to the permanent solution, we're going to have a temporary solution probably sometime early next month, which is, Monday, or actually Saturday. So in the next couple of weeks. And we plan to do a similar thing at the Marinette Center. As those that use those centers know, that you kind of come right in past the check-in without necessarily having to even be seen by them. So we're trying to remedy that. Next, the Best Friends Dog Club is going to be using the Mountain View Auditorium during the summer, June, July, and August, for their activities. This is an experiment using a space that's rarely used for anything all summer. So there's a few details to iron out before the actual tails arrive, but we're getting very close. Next, you may have noticed that the Bell outdoor pools and spa have been closed for a couple of weeks now. This will be an annual occurrence going forward on a rolling schedule for all of our pools with plenty of advance notice. This closure allows for the proper maintenance and repair or refurbishing of the pools there. This is long overdue. We need to be changing out the pool water at least annually, and we're still working to find a solution to what I call, and I've spoken of before, the pool deck dilemma. We may end up going to stamped concrete to find something that gives us better longevity rather than what we're using now. We are still studying options and have a few experiments going on. The last punch card sales are tomorrow, and you'll have a year to use the existing punch cards. For members without a computer at home, you can purchase guest passes online at new kiosks that are available at Bell, Fairway, or Lakeview. We continue to investigate what I call the T-Bird property, the former Acuity Hospital at Thunderbird and 111th, and we're working on potential terms with the owner. We should have a decision next month about a purchase agreement or not. Many works in progress here. I was asked coming in today about the Mountain View project, so I'm happy to say that we've received 4 proposals for the Mountain View / PAC Performing Arts Center project. We're going through the initial evaluation of each of those proposals and developing a matrix to allow for better comparison. We'll be making a recommendation to the board soon, and hopefully we can get this project rolling again. Another interesting topic, the library lease. We continue to make good progress. We had a very good meeting last Friday with the library district. Most of the issues are resolved, I'm quite happy to say. There's a few remaining ones that they need to talk to some of their folks about and think on, and some proposed language. So I just want to say, please don't worry about the June 30th date. The current lease has a 6-month option to go month to month, and everyone involved is confident that we will have this long before the end of the year. Summer hours are here, along with the heat. So Mountain View, Bell, and Marinette are opening at 5 a.m. to help us beat the heat. So get up early. I'm trying to rotate my schedule to like going to bed at 8 and getting up at 4. It's not easy though, especially the going to bed early too. And lastly, the new summer activities are off to a great start. I'm not sure if you've been able to participate, but we're getting rave reviews for things like the Family Feud type game show we had last week. And there's going to be more things to do in the summer along that vein, along with concerts like the one that was here last night. So as usual, there's an awful lot going on here year-round, and I thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up is Director Ruff.
Mr. Delansky, next year, could we not do the pool maintenance over a holiday weekend?
I think that's a good idea.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments from the directors? Okay, next up are announcements. Do we have any announcements? Announcements, okay. There doesn't appear to be a consent agenda today. So next up is the committee recommendations. Director Foster, do you have a committee recommendation for us?
I do, President Fimmel. I move based on the Insurance Committee and the RCSC Insurance Brokers' recommendations to approve the 2024-2025 insurance renewal proposal for the Rec Centers of Sun City Incorporated. The renewal proposal includes the same insurance coverages, carriers, terms, conditions, per the RCSC's expiring coverage, with the exception of the excess liability coverage. The $30 million in excess liability coverage was provided in 2023-2024 by Philadelphia Insurance for $10 million and Federal Insurance for $20 million. In 2024-2025, this same $30 million of coverage will be split among Philadelphia Insurance for $5 million, Sampo for $5 million, Chubb for $10 million, and Great American Insurance for $10 million. The overall premium increase for all coverages during 2024-2025 will be $303,148, or 26.6%. Flood coverage is currently being quoted by RCSC's insurance broker, and RCSC will bind this coverage by the end of June 2024.
Thank you. Committee recommendations do not require a second. Director Foster, as maker of this motion, do you wish to speak to it first?
Yes, please. Well, like many of us, when we renew our auto or homeowners insurance, we're all seeing increased premiums, and unfortunately, that was the case here with our insurance package for the RCSC for 2024-2025. Original quotes were considerably higher than the 26.6% that I just informed you about, approaching actually the 40% range. Given those increased costs, the insurance committee pushed back on the insurance broker very tactfully but firmly, and that resulted in pushing down those premiums to the 26% increased level. We also pushed back on the insurance broker on their commissions, and were able to negotiate that they would go from 14% of the premium down to roughly 10% of the premium. The issues that we're facing here are very similar to many other recreation type of communities like ourselves. The claim experience is an issue. And so when we went out to try and get bids for these different property coverage, auto coverage, general liability coverage, we had 16 different insurance companies all basically turn us down for one reason or another, but basically related to claim experience. So we need to do some things to address that. So going forward, General Manager Delansky has hired an individual of safety and compliance, and that individual will attempt to improve the safety culture of our employees in order to try and improve that claim experience. And that's going to take a couple years, because while we can go out to those insurance companies and say we're doing all these things, we're training our people, at the end of the day, the rubber hits the road with the actual numbers of claim experience. We will also be considering, or the insurance committee will also be considering, the possibility of some minimum types of self-insurance in the sense of higher deductibles on these policies. We did discuss attempting to RFP the insurance broker services, but at least for the moment, we'll stay with the current broker. And we also discussed briefly the concept of a captive insurance company, which, while that could assist us quite a bit in managing premiums, there's always unintended consequences. And in this case, the IRS would be knocking at our door because our business model would be complicated by having a taxable insurance company. So we'd have to work through those issues before we could ever go down that path. So that's basically where we stand. The insurance premiums have gone up. We're trying to mitigate those increases. But in the interim, I would ask the board to approve the recommendation of the insurance committee and the RCSC insurance broker that is contained in the motion that was just presented.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson, please read the names of any members who signed up to speak to this recommendation only.
Madam President, no one signed up to speak on this motion.
Thank you. Is there any discussion by the directors?
President Finn?
Yes.
Director Foster, when you were talking about our loss history and the experience period, do you happen to know if it's 36 or 60 months, or does it vary by policy?
It varies. I think probably Kevin McCurdy can give you more specific answers on that.
Kevin,
Perhaps.
do you know if our loss experience, the period that they look at our losses, is 36 months or 60?
It's 60 months.
60. So for 5 years, we have to wait for these claims to actually age out, right?
Correct.
Okay, so I think I just wanted to add that because Director Foster talked about it's going to take time, understanding how insurance works, and that 60 months is 5 years. So it's going to take some time for us to be able to age some of those claims out and improve our loss history.
Additional, Treasurer Borski.
Will our safety compliance officers be looking at our clubs as well?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Will the safety officer compliant officers be looking at our clubs in their experience with issues? Kevin?
The short answer there is yes.
Okay.
We're going to have to be working very closely with the COC and the club's office because we don't want to just barge in and start, making orders and changes. But yes, we clearly need to work with the COC and the clubs themselves to introduce the concept of space, facility inspections, because a big component of the premium increase and the loss history increase last year were slip and falls that happened in clubs themselves.
Okay. So they'll be asked to look at all their chemicals and equipment and...
Chemical safety,
Okay.
just, general cleanliness and making sure that, obvious risks are mitigated in those spaces.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Additional comments from the directors? Secretary Rickmeyer, please take the roll call vote.
Director Collins.
Yes.
Thank you. Director Foster.
Yes.
Director Nettesheim.
Yes.
Vice President McAdam.
Yes.
Director Ruff.
Yes.
Treasurer Borski.
Yes.
Director Keiss.
Yes.
President Fimmel.
Yes.
And I vote yes. So the vote is 9 yes and 0 no's. Motion passes.
Motion is adopted. Thank you. Director Foster, do you have another recommendation from the committee?
I do, President Fimmel. I move based on the insurance committees and the RCSC insurance broker's recommendation that RCSC decline terrorism risk insurance. The terrorism-related coverage is optional for commercial property and casualty coverages except workmen's compensation. The Terrorism Risk Insurance Act was initially created by the federal government after the 9/11/2001 attack on American soil. The act allows the federal government to share monetary losses with insurers on commercial property and casualty losses due to a terrorist attack. For the Terrorism Risk Insurance Act coverage to apply, a terrorist event would have to be declared by the Secretary of State, which has not happened in the United States since this act was passed by Congress in 2002. RCSC has rejected Terrorist Risk Insurance Act on applicable coverages during the past several years.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson, please read the names of any members who have signed up to speak on this recommendation only.
Madam President, no one signed up to speak on this motion.
Thank you. Is there any discussion by the directors? No discussion. Secretary Rickmeyer, please take the roll call vote.
Director Collins?
Yes, decline.
Wait a second. Yes?
I want to decline.
So you want to...
Decline the coverage.
Okay, so
Your vote is yes?
your vote is yes.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Foster?
Yes.
Director Nedesheim?
Yes.
Vice President McAdam?
Yes.
Director Ruff?
Yes.
Treasurer Borski?
Yes.
Director Keiss?
Yes.
President Fimmel?
Yes,
And I vote yes. Votes are 9 yes and 0 no's.
the motion is adopted. Next up are second readings. Second readings do not require seconds. The first item is from Vice President McAdam.
So on behalf of the Elections Committee, I move to amend bylaws Article 7 titled Nomination and Appointment Procedure, Sections 2 and 3 as follows. Under Section 2, we're just making the statement that on or before the first Monday in June, board candidate packets will be available. And under Section 3, we're eliminating the named date of the first Friday in October and instead changing that to the scheduled date in the candidate packet.
Thank you. Did you wish to speak to this motion?
Yes, for those who may not have heard this at the last board meeting, the purpose of this is simply to extend the runway for people who are interested in serving on the board and making it easier if people are traveling during the summer months to have enough time to get their packets submitted. I do want to clarify one thing. I think at the last board meeting, we were expecting that this date would change from what would have been October 5th to October 25th. It turns out that this year the candidate packages are going to say October 18th instead, simply because that allows for the candidate profiles to be published in both the November and the December issues of Sunviews. So instead of it being a 3-week longer runway this year, it's going to be a 2-week longer runway. But year by year, we'll be able to determine that date based on the way the calendar happens to fall in that year.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson, please read the names of members who have signed up to speak to this motion only.
Madam President, no one signed up to speak on this motion.
Thank you. Is there any discussion by the directors? Nope. Okay, Secretary Rickmeyer, please take the roll call vote.
Director Collins?
Yes.
Director Foster?
Yes.
Director Nedesheim?
Yes.
Vice President McAdam?
Yes.
Director Ruff?
Yes.
Treasurer Borski?
Yes.
Director Keiss?
Yes.
President Fimmel?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Votes are 9 yes and 0 no's.
With the unanimous vote, this motion passes its second reading and is adopted.
Yay.
Next is a motion by Director Keiss.
On behalf of the Golf Advisory Committee, I move to amend Board Policy Number 17, titled Golf, section titled Green Committee, paragraph 4 as follows. For Green Committee, in addition to each selected Green Committee member having a vote on the Golf Advisory Committee, the President and Vice President of the Sun City Men's Golf Association, SCMGA, President of the Sun City Women's Golf Association, SCWGA, and the President of the Sun City Women's 9-Hole Association will also have a vote.
Director Keiss, do you wish to speak to this motion?
Yes, this is a simple request from the Golf Advisory Committee. At this time, there are 9 women and 8 men on the committee. This evens it out, so there are 9 men and 9 women on the committee to make the committee gender neutral. And that was the desire from the committee to do that.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson, please read the names of members who signed up to speak to this motion only.
Madam President, no one signed up to speak on this motion.
Thank you. Is there any discussion with the directors? Okay. Secretary Rickmeyer, please take the roll call vote.
Director Collins?
Yes.
Director Foster?
Yes.
Director Nedesheim?
Yes.
Vice President McAdam.
Yes.
Director Ruff.
Yes.
Treasurer Borski.
Yes.
Director Keiss.
Yes.
President Fimmel.
Yes.
And I vote yes. So 9 yes and 0 no's.
With a unanimous vote, this motion passes its second reading and is adopted. Next up is a motion from Director Ruff.
I move to amend Board Policy Number 24, titled Preservation and Improvement Fee, Capital Improvement Fee, as follows. It modifies language around death of a single owner who was married at the time of the purchase of a property to not require a new PIF fee or SIF fee on the transfer of property to a spouse as sole owner. See Section 1, Paragraph A, Number 7, and Section 2, Paragraph A, Number 7 for language. We also modify language requiring ownership for 1 year of a property that is sold, and subsequently an additional Sun City property is purchased within a year of that sale. This would stop flippers from getting refunds of PIF fee and SIF fee on new property not owned for a year. See Section 1, Paragraph C, Number 1, and Section 2, Paragraph C, Number 1 for language. This adds detail to allow use of PIF capital and SIF capital. See Section 1, Paragraph D, Number 4, and Section 2, Paragraph D, Number 4. And I need to make an amendment. I thought we had done this at the last meeting. Apparently, I did not do that. In that the SIF fee, we want to...
Excuse me, Director Ruff, you cannot amend this motion. This motion has already passed its first reading. This is the second reading of this motion.
You can't amend the motion?
This is the motion's second reading.
Oh, gotcha.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Did you complete the reading of the motion?
Yes, I did.
Thank you. Did you wish to speak to this motion?
Yes, I would.
Please.
The incidents around the push to make some of these changes were a couple that was married in 2002, but put the house only in the husband's name. And then when the husband died, the spouse was charged for a PIF and a SIF. As we looked at it in Arizona law, after you own something for a certain amount of time, it becomes joint property. And so her name wasn't on the deed, but by their law, by the state's law, she is a owner. So we made the motion that if you are married at the time that you bought it and it's only in one name, there's not a PIF or a SIF. Somebody asked me today if they were married, it was in both names, spouse died, and then they remarried, and the husband died, then they would have to pay the PIF or SIF because it's a new owner, so different circumstances. And then modifying the language for ownership, we're trying to make sure that the flippers pay SIF and PIF. The way the language read is if you buy a second property within a year after the one you last paid for, you don't have to pay the PIF and SIF, and they're going a couple a year and then not having to pay that, and we think they should pay it. So that's where that came from. In last month after we talked about it, the Section 1, Paragraph D, Number 4, and D4 for the PIF and the SIF, what that does is it says the funds are not to be spent for normal operating or maintenance expenses, and we want to delete that sentence from the draft, and I would ask Kevin if he would explain why we want to do that.
Yeah, Director Ruff, in the first reading of this motion, that particular section on page 4, section D, number 4, that was struck in the first reading of this. And in the current version that's in the board book, that deletion has been changed, so I'm not sure.
Well, I think there was an issue between Marcia and mine. It's probably my fault that it didn't get entered directly for this one.
Yeah. So in the first reading, that section was deleted. So I'm not sure if you have to amend something that was approved in the first reading, but there's a typo in the second
You cannot amend the first reading passed. This is a second reading.
That's what we're talking about here, right?
Yeah.
So the version that was approved in the first reading is correct.
Oh, because it wasn't on there. That's what you gave me.
Yeah.
If you're making no attempt to amend, then you are passing what was in the first reading, then I do not find it objectionable.
Okay.
Okay?
So that line is deleted.
Well, I guess that's the question that we have. Do we have clarity about that? We would have to know from last month's board meeting whether that was actually struck and simply not captured in the paperwork for this month's meeting.
You're saying there was an administrative error. That is fine.
Yeah, that's my question. Do we have clarity about that? I don't, my memory fails me here.
I've got my version of this from last month, and in the copy that I have in my board book, that section was struck for the first reading.
Yes, and I think, I don't know how it happened, but I gave a newer copy to Marcia, and I think that got through undeleted unintentionally. So it is an error.
Okay, so it's an administrative matter that has been resolved.
Madam President,
Yes, Director Collins?
can we read last month's motion that was passed and second that one and get for second reading on that?
I believe that's what we're doing. We're simply clarifying that during the period after the meeting, that a piece of information was not stricken from a document. We are passing today the second reading of last month's motion without change.
I'm saying, can you read it with the proper language in it? Or taken out of it? Can you read what it should be?
Kevin, you've got it, right? Can Kevin read it?
Madam
Yes,
President.
Director Ruff.
We're striking the language, so there's nothing to read that would make sense.
Will
It's
you
not
read the
there.
sentence that was stricken in the first reading?
Paragraph.
Section 2. Section 2.
Section 2, paragraph D4 is struck, and that says funds are not to be spent for normal operating or maintenance expenses.
And that
And that's only for
statement
the
was
SIF.
struck, but not removed in a retype.
Right.
And so this is an administrative matter. Today, we are making the passing, hopefully, of the second reading of this motion. Okay. Is there additional, did we get to the point yet of asking if there are any members who wish to speak to this motion?
Yes.
Lois Hanson?
My number is 145653. Lois Hanson. I am very confused about this PIF item 4. Is that sentence going to be in there or not in there? And does that mean F is now still in there about the PIF? I'm very concerned about the PIF being plundered, so to speak, because there's no strict guidelines for normal maintenance.
Operational maintenance is, correct me, tell me if I'm right or wrong. Operational
decides normal
expenses
maintenance?
are operational expenses, and the PIF is the PIF.
Correct. Director Fimmel, President Fimmel, let me just clarify. The restriction that we not use PIF money for operational activities and maintenance remains. So we are prevented from using PIF money for operational and maintenance activities. What this is doing is allowing management to use SIF money for large maintenance projects.
Which was
So-
his intended purpose.
Correct.
But not the PIF money?
Correct.
Okay. I do wonder about the limit on the SIF money being only $5,000. I'm assuming that the board, in its fiduciary responsibility, will keep track of that to make sure it's not abused. We don't want either of these funds to suddenly dwindle away and affect our fiscal standing.
No, there's no $5,000 limit for PIF projects. That remains at $300,000.
Okay,
The $5,000 is for SIF projects.
yes.
Yep.
But that can also dwindle the SIF
Sure.
too if it's not carefully monitored. And I'm assuming as part of your fiduciary responsibility, you will be monitoring that carefully?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Pamela Black.
I was just a physician, so I don't know
Ms.
finances
Black,
very
could you
well.
give us your number, please?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's 171851.
Thank you.
So I don't know a lot about monetary issues or financial issues, but I did manage a small business, and I had a CPA on staff. And so she met with me every other week, and we discussed the financial issues. And she was very, very, very strict about having appropriate controls in place. And I'm not sure on the PIF or the SIF that there are enough controls in place. So my understanding, and again, I'm kind of ignorant in these issues, is that the SIF has you can't spend less than $5,000. I didn't read that there's now an upper limit of the amount that can be spent on that, and that I'm very concerned about, and maybe I just don't know the bylaws well enough, that there's no restriction in this area, in this section, about not to be spent for normal operating and maintenance expenses. Is that clear?
Kevin, could you give her an example of what the SIF money would be used for?
Sure. We've kind of discussed this at the prior meeting. The reason why we removed the upper limit to SIF is because of accounting rules around how you clarify or classify a capital project versus a PIF project. And there are likely instances that will come up where a project that costs more than $300,000 doesn't qualify as a PIF project because it doesn't last for 15 years or more, which is what the current criteria for a PIF project is. It's over $300,000 in 15 years or more of useful life. So because there are likely scenarios where a project might cost $1 million but would not last 15 years, we would use SIF money for that project. So the PIF is very specifically bound by the $300,000 and 15 years or more useful life for a project to qualify as a PIF project.
So why can't there be an upper limit on the SIF project that then needs to go back to the general public for approval?
Well, all capital projects are going to be presented as part of the budget cycle. So the Budget and Finance Committee, Long Range Planning Committee, and the board will all have, approval authority over that list of capital projects. We don't get, as management, we don't get to just choose without board approval what projects are on that list.
I understand that. So why doesn't the board approve an upper limit that needs to go back to the public on the SIF?
Correct me if I'm wrong here, but our members don't participate in the execution or approval of the budget, although we do, this board does, permit the members to participate openly in the budget process.
Correct.
Budget approval remains the responsibility of the board.
Correct.
Okay, so so we just trust the board in terms of spending this money in a fiduciary responsibility, is that correct?
Well, you don't have to just trust us. We opened this financial process. In the old days, the financial process was a closed process. Last year, for the first time, we opened it up to participation by the members of the community, and we expect to do that again this year. I'm sorry, I'm going to go your way first, Vice President McAdam.
Yes, so we are very happy if you do trust us, but we have put some controls in place there as well. So first of all, these sorts of things are discussed at Budget and Finance Committee meetings to which the general public is invited. Secondly, as President Fimmel just mentioned, the budget process this year is going to be a much, much more robust process involving a lot more input from lots of different people than it has ever been in the past. And part of that is that the budget is going to be approved, is going to be in a draft form early enough for us to be able to have town halls. Probably it's going to be in October. So we're looking to have a budget in place, a draft budget by mid-September, I think. Kevin, is that right? Somewhere around then.
Ideally.
So that we would be able to invite the public to come, and that would be a chance. So rather than us sort of artificially setting a limit and say if this happens that we have to call a special session, instead we just have a process in place so that you will be able to hear and see what the justifications are for any project that makes the list and gets folded into the budget for next year.
Thank you for your foresight in planning for all that. I really appreciate it. And I'm sorry if I seem ignorant, but I just purchased the end of February, so I don't know much about the history. So thank you very much.
Welcome to Sun City.
Thank you.
Brad Schroeder.
Good morning. 133134. I have been looking through this language, and I've been asked or commented to from several people that want a real estate company, investment company, whatever, purchases a property. They don't pay the PIF and SIF until they sell it to someone else. And in our neighborhood, in the last 18 months, we've had 4 properties that have been taken over, bought by real estate investment companies. They throw some paint on the walls and they lease them. Is there any language in there that says they have to pay into the funds? It's a lot of legalese in there, and I don't really understand it, but are these companies actually paying before they sell? As leased properties, they are paying?
Yeah, the PIF and the SIF are charged when the property is purchased. So any company that purchases a home and then leases it out will have paid a PIF and a SIF. What this motion specifically refers to is if that property, the current rules are that if that property were sold 2 months afterwards and that seller passed certain criteria, being the primary owner living in Sun City, then that PIF and SIF would be refunded. What this motion does is it says that you have to own that home for a year in order to get the refund if you resell it. So to answer your question, yes, they absolutely pay the PIF and the SIF when they purchase that property. And what that would mean is if that were sold prior to a year going by, they would not get a refund of the PIF and the SIF.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lorraine, and I can't pronounce your last name. What is it?
Shalaba.
Shalaba? Okay.
145957 Lorraine Shalaba. I purchased a house from a flipper, and I do want to say flippers make a lot of money in Sun City, and so I really support the activity that we do not give them any refunds because they're making tons of money on the properties that they're flipping in Sun City. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave Whalen. Madam President, everyone spoke that signed up on this motion.
Thank you. Is there any discussion by the directors? Secretary Rick Meyer, please take the roll call vote.
Okay. All right, Treasurer Borski.
Yes.
Director Keiss.
Yes.
Director Collins.
Yes.
Vice President McAdam.
Yes.
Director Ruff.
Yes.
Director Foster.
Yes.
Director Nedesheim.
Yes.
President Fimmel.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Votes of 9 yes and 0 no.
With a unanimous vote, this motion passes its second reading and is adopted. Next up is new business. The first order of new business is a motion from Director Keiss.
Madam President, I want to withdraw this motion. I need to send it to the Long Range Planning Committee so the redesign of turf and South Golf Course can be reviewed by the Long Range Planning Committee and used as a test case for the justification process that they're designing.
Director Keiss is requesting to withdraw this motion. That requires a majority vote. Although I might ask if there are any directors who are in objection to the withdrawal of this motion.
I am.
You're in objection? Mm-hmm. Okay. Would you like some discussion?
I would. And I understand we're working and formulating a process of making sure that things go to long-range planning, budget, and finance. And yes, in essence, I believe this has, in some forms, people knew this was coming up. We knew that South Golf Course needs to be redesigned to reduce the amount of water that it consumes and to create more desert or non-scape areas. It's a really huge golf course. So I really feel that we need to move forward on this, or the cost for the design is only going to increase. And that still gives time for long-range planning to discuss what the cost is going to be for implementing the redesign.
Any other director discussion? Director Keiss.
President.
Director Keiss. Director Collins.
Yes. I think we should still go forward with this because the way things are, we need to get our designs and get the people that can do the work before everyone else gets the people to start working for them. We need to just get a head start on this so that we don't end up with not being able to get the best people for the best price because they're already tied up with the other golf courses all around Arizona, because this is a mandate a deal we made with ADWR. It's not something we can just not do. We told them we would do it, and then they eased the time restrictions on us for the amount of water we can use. So getting the information we need for the design and everything else in advance will help us greatly, I feel. And I think we should continue with this. Thank you.
I would quickly make a comment that I don't know that we had a specific project, and currently one of our motions is the Quail Run, thank you, which is an ADWR project for this year. So we are meeting our ADWR requirement by having a golf course being redone this year. Director Keiss.
Yes, I've talked with Director Duthu, nouns, senior citizens and nouns, about this. And my timeline for this is to get this through long-range planning so that in the early fall, we can put it back onto the agenda. And Director Duthu and I believe that we can still get this done and get designed in a timely manner so that south can be taken care of in a similar time frame to what it was originally forecasted. So I don't think this is going to necessarily delay the project, but it will allow us to do some more diligence to make sure that it's justified adequately.
Thank you. Is there additional discussion by the directors? Director Foster.
I would just want to add to Director Keis's comments there that I do believe that there's going to be plenty of time to address the South Golf Course. And we are moving, at least in my opinion, very strongly in the direction of reducing our water usage on the North Course and on the Quail Run course, and all the things that we've done on the Lakeview project. So I think, with all due respect to the state of Arizona, we're doing our fair share, and pushing this back a few months, I don't think is going to cause us any real grief with the state.
Any additional comments from the directors? Secretary Rickmeyer.
I guess, okay, if it's specific designers that we're trying to hire, and we delay, because if we did this motion and we do it again, they technically could start working by this fall, as opposed to start working December or early next year. And I guess I'm just concerned, knowing time constraints of design teams, will we wind up with design team B instead of design team A?
There's no way to know at this point, I don't believe. General Manager, do you have someone to comment?
I would defer to Brian.
I don't believe that Gary, who's typically been our primary designer in these cases, would have any issue starting in September. As long as or this fall, I should say. The goal would be to have the documents prepared for the bidding process to begin early in 2025, so that the project could commence in 2026. So that would, the contractors are close to a year out right now. So as long as we're on a timeline that allows us to get our planning documents done and bid on early next year, I don't see any issues with waiting to the fall for this motion.
Thank you. Additional comments from the directors? Secretary Rickmeyer, please take a vote on the withdrawal of this motion.
Treasurer Borski?
I'm voting to withdraw.
That would be yes.
Yes.
Director Keis?
Yes.
Director Collins?
Yes.
Vice President McAdam?
Yes.
Director Ruff?
Yes.
Director Foster?
Yes.
Director Nedesheim?
Yes.
President Fimmel?
Yes.
I really want to vote no.
Then vote no.
I'm going to vote no. So with a vote of 8 yes and 1 no.
With a vote of 8-1, the motion is withdrawn. The next motion is from Director Keis. Please read your motion.
I move to approve $6 million for the Quail Run Golf Course renovation project. The scope of the work includes money previously approved for project development, green renovation to USGA guidelines, complete irrigation replacement to include a new pump station, conversion of tees and fairways to Tiff-Tuff Bermuda grass, renovation of the golf course lake to provide lining and increased water storage, consultation, construction oversight, and a contingency. And additionally, the Quail Run audio system and patio system will receive upgrades that are on the Golf Advisory Committee project priority list. And the costs of that are included with the motion.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, I'll go with Secretary Rickmeyer as the second. Director Keis, did you wish to speak to this motion?
I do. The need to renovate the Quail Run Golf Course is rooted in two main areas. The current irrigation system was extended well beyond its useful life, and Arizona Department of Water Resources, ADWR, has mandated requirements to reduce water usage. Due to the number of leaks at any one time, grassy areas have had to be shut off until they could be repaired, and many of those repairs were not completed. Also, when the system is depressurized for repairs, it puts stress on other areas of the overage system, leading to additional breaks. This has resulted in significant water waste that pools up in areas of the course, is run off into the streets, and degrades the Sun City border walls. Additionally, the only pond on the course that is used for water storage is leaking. RCSC submitted a plan to ADWR to collectively increase the allotment among our golf courses because our current allotment doesn't give us the water to keep our roughs as healthy as they should be. This project is the next step in that plan. We currently operate with a slightly over 4,900 acre feet. Without relief provided by this plan, ADWR can reduce this number to 4,200 acre feet. If we follow the submitted plan, ADWR has agreed to raise that number to 4,500 acre feet. Failure to meet the timeline presented to ADWR could result in losing the additional allotment that we were granted. This renovation will convert current grassy areas that require irrigation but aren't necessary to golf operations to desertscape. The pond will be renovated to add a lining to stop seepage and deepened to increase water storage while not increasing surface area and evaporation. The course greens, tees, fairways, and roughs will be converted to new grass types that require less water and have shorter dormancy periods in the winter. An entirely new irrigation system will be installed to eliminate the leaks and provide improved coverage to areas that need to be watered for golf course operations. These changes to Quail Run will greatly reduce our water usage, eliminate the waste from the current irrigation system and pond, and help us to meet our ADWR mandated water reduction requirements. Approving this motion at the May and June board meetings will provide the lead time necessary for the new pump station equipment and allow the project to start on schedule in April 2025 with expected completion in October of 2025. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson, please read the names of the members who signed up to speak on this motion only.
Susan Bjork.
Hello, Board. Before I speak on this motion,
Ms. Bjork, could you give us your number, please?
Yeah, it's 112650. I think Marcia has it on that form.
Thank you.
I'd like to, given the confusion around the PIF motion, I want to add something to that because I would have signed up to speak on it had I understood the confusion. But I think Section 2 is right that Section 4 should be deleted because that's talking about SIF. But in Section 1, it's talking about PIF, and 4 is still in there, but preservation and improvement funds are not to be spent for normal operating or maintenance expenses is crossed off in Section 1, and I think that might be an error because we're talking about PIF funds there versus the SIF funds. So Section 2, I would agree that 4 needs to be struck along with F in Section 2, but in Section 1, where we're talking about PIF dollars, I think F needs to remain along with 4 because it's the segregation of PIF versus SIF.
Susan, that's just been moved up to the section above in Section D, so that's still there. Section D, number 4. PIF funds are not to be spent for normal operating or maintenance expenses.
Oh, okay, all right, perfect, sorry. Given the confusion, I just wanted to make sure that, we provided clarity there.
Sure.
Okay, all right, so I'm here actually on behalf of Steve Oakes because he could not be here. So I'm just going to read some of his concerns, which I would say that I am in agreement with his concerns, and I'll have some of my own commentary as well. But he's against this motion to completely redo Quail Run, and I think some of you are aware because he sent you an email. But to be certain, number 1, he said insufficient facts presented at this time, such as price comparisons for fixing the irrigation versus remaking the entire course. And I noticed on your table, this is my commentary, on your table, you don't segregate out how much the irrigation system alone would cost, and then improving the areas that may be torn up due to replacing the irrigation system. I think that would be a good comparison to understand, hey, since we have to tear it up, this is what it's going to cost. We'd rather just redo the course for whatever reason. I'll keep reading here. Should not vote on a motion without proper financial alternatives review. So it seems logical that leaks could be repaired. Okay, we got that. Complete redesign, rebuild of Quail Run is absent of community review. What survey showed a call for a remake of Quail Run? I understand it's ADWR issues, but we're talking about a 9-hole golf course, and to spend $6 million on a 9-hole executive course is going to be harder to recoup from golfers on that course. So, and he also said long-range planning was not consulted and was not given data or alternatives. So Preston, at the long-range planning committee meeting, you just brought it up that you wanted to put the south course recommendation through that process. I would think that this process would be one that would go through that, given you were the one leading that charge, instead of putting it through. And as far as the time is concerned, because I'm my own member, start it again, please.
Susan, would you like me to answer that?
Sure.
I don't believe this should, because this project was started a while ago and we're in the middle of the process of it. South is just beginning now, which is why I would like to start in the process at the beginning instead of right in the middle of it. It's a little bit late to jump into it as we've gone this far down the road.
Oh, okay, I understand what you're saying there. In absence of the fact that it's not a new project, then I would at least want to know what the alternative cost is to just replace the irrigation system, to see how much difference in funds there is. Because if you look at it, we've got $34 million as of the end of April in the PIF. We've got 27.3 of that allocated to Mountain View and whatever we decide with a theater or whatever is going on with what we're not knowledgeable about in Mountain View. And then this $6 million, that eats up all of it. And I know there's phases of Mountain View, but it's still, we're allocating that full $34 million to these two projects right now. And so I would like to see just that alternative solution of what it would cost to replace the irrigation system too.
You also have to, you also have to understand that water reduction is not involved solely in the irrigation system. Reducing our water usage also goes into the types of turfs that are there.
Correct.
And reducing the non-essential areas, so that the course is going to be torn up anyhow. So it's not just irrigation system. There are several other areas that go into water reduction with this.
I get that, but it sounds like you're doing a whole redesign of the course and not just irrigation and this turf requirement.
Well, if we replace the turf to low water usage and the roughs, the fairways, the tees, and the greens, that is the whole course.
Okay.
Secretary.
Okay, so everybody knows my background, work in engineering. I've reviewed the plans. Essentially, the entire golf course, in order to just replace the irrigation, would be torn up. I mean, we're talking, it's torn up anyway. So if it's torn up, and I mean, it's unusable at that point, why not upgrade it so that way it meets the ADWR? It also, and we're not talking about a complete redesign, and I think people need to understand that. What we're talking about is some tweaks, so maybe a tee box is moved forward or back. Steve, mute yourself. Maybe it's something as simple as maybe a bunker is relocated or the green is shifted. This is, as Director Kai stated, and as senior golf leader Mr. Duthu would state as well, I mean, it's a leaking sieve there. It's damaged the wall between hole number 1 and Grand Avenue. You know, this has been needed for probably more than a decade, and it's kept being pushed off and pushed off and pushed off. So I appreciate Steve Oak's comment. I appreciate your comments, but it'd be like the essence of, we're going to wash the baby in used bathwater. You know, how they always say, throw out the baby with the bathwater. If we don't make these improvements while we've already got the course torn up, then we would have to tear the course up yet again to do this. So you're now instead of a $6 million project, you know, because most of those things still need to be redone yet again, it's not a logical assumption. And I can appreciate that it is a lot of money, but with the reduction we'll see in water, both in replacing the irrigation as well as with this tough turf, I mean, we may not need to do as much on South, right, South, once we get this going.
Okay. Someone had mentioned that part of the wall problem is because the irrigation is spraying right on the wall and it's not changed. But I think what would eliminate this whole issue is to have that alternative. Here's what it would cost to rip up the golf course, to put a new irrigation system in and put in the proper turf. It really equates to about the same money. We're going to spend a little bit more and get a way better product. I think that would go a long way in the community, which is exactly why you propose that new process, which will be a good process with the template that you've been given. So the last thing is, I just want to make sure I get all of Steve's points in here. Quail run's appreciated today by many golfers, which I don't think you're suggesting that's going to be any different. You're just replacing turf. You're not. Some suggest that an old version of the PIF plan allowed such funding for ADWR water reductions. Former estimates are not reason enough to do a major remake at such a high cost. The remake of Quail Run is suspected to satisfy a part of the ADWR goal. However, it's not known if we need to reduce water usage at the same rate we did in 2021. Inadequate information or negotiations appear to be an issue with ADWR regarding our water reductions. The 2021 PIF plan showed we would spend about $20 million of PIF 10-year funds on just water reductions. This suggests, too, that much turf removal, therefore too much spending on turf removal. So those are Steve's comments. I just wanted to make sure you had them. But again, I think it would go a long way if you would put in there, you segregated out the fertilization system, so why not segregate out the cost of the irrigation system and the new turf? Or at least the irrigation system. I think that would go a long way in communication. So
Thank you. Where are we getting this reverberation from?
It's Steve.
Steve, oh, okay. All right.
Madam President?
Yes, Steve?
I just wanted to say, you know, this Quail Run is the first step in this water reduction. And the further we get on the plus side of this water reduction, the longer we can put off doing all the other things. It's a matter of, you know, making ADWR happy, conserving the water, and then we can move slower going ahead. But this is the #1 priority, water mitigation, over everything. I mean, we have to do this, and it's not going to go down that they're going to give us more water. It's going to get more and more stringent. And in the past, a couple of the courses, we did just fix all the irrigation years back. And then a year, 3 or 4 or 5 years later, we ended up tearing up the course and redoing it. So in the long run, it cost us a great deal more money. So I think we need to as we go forward, do the best we can, and then on each course, and then we can possibly extend the amount of time to complete all of them. ADWR would see we're not just doing Band-Aids, we're actually doing a fix.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Borski. Ms. Bjork, I'm sorry.
Well, that's not the first time that's happened. So Steve, Director Collins, I just have a quick question. You say it's the first step. Are you saying that it's the first step in a complete redesign of a golf course, doing the whole thing versus piecemeal? Because I know that we have made significant steps towards reducing the water usage on other golf courses. And we know that that's, been with the turf, and then Viewpoint Lake, of course. And I think that that has been touted in the LRP as favorable in the view of ADWR, and so that's why they haven't been pushing us, as I recall. So I'm confused by your statement that this is the very first step with regard to ADWR reduction.
It's okay.
This course here, we're starting to work on this course. So after this one, we'll have to do the south. And then there may be stuff in the future we also have to do. But the better we do it now, and the greater water reduction we get, the less we're going to have to do later, and also not in such a great timely fashion. Because we can say, we have been dropping the water usage. You can see what we're doing. And it's just better to do it right the first time and get it done, and also improve our courses.
And it's very important to do this course now because the irrigation system is leaking badly. GM, do you have anyone who wants to speak to Ms. Bjork's comments?
Brian
Yes.
wants to.
You want to speak, Brian?
Yes. Ms. Bjork, directors of the board, it would probably be most correct to say that this is the first step in meeting the 5th management plan for ADWR. Previous GM, Bill Cook, was under a time limit to get our mitigation plan in without, as Director Kais alluded to, without doing any mitigation of turf or any investment in our golf courses. Our allotment's going to drop to 4,200 acre feet. That's a hard number. Through the negotiations, we were able to get that number up to 4,500 acre feet. We currently underwater and under fertilize our roughs on purpose because of the great expansive roughs that we have and our ability to maintain them. So reducing turf will allow us to move water and maintenance practices to more in-play areas where they'll be more impactful to the golfers. I lost my train of thought, sorry. The greens, when you're designing an irrigation system, they're always designed from the greens backwards. So if we were just to go through and replace just the irrigation system, it's going to severely limit our ability to do anything with the greens in the future. The normal USGA recommendation for greens renovation is anywhere from 30 to 40 years. Quail runs obviously well over that, so it's due. The type of turf that we're looking to use on quail has been used by other golf courses, and especially on the greens, don't necessarily require overseeding, so that's additional water savings that's potential in the future, as well as the TIF-TUF, which is well on its way of being proven to use less water and be a superior playing surface to what our golfers are currently experiencing on our common Bermuda fairways.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. So when you say 5th run, or whatever that word was, is there anticipated that ADWR is going to come out with some other processes or reductions after this, this point? I mean, what I'm getting at is, are we going to spend this $6 million and then they're going to come back and reduce? Because I understand right now their focus is municipalities. So I'm just playing devil's advocate.
The management plans that ADWR is currently working on, I believe, began in the 80s with the first management plan. And then there was a second, and then when I started here, they were on the third. They were supposed to be going to the 4th management plan when I first got here, but that got delayed until it really just now went into effect in 2023 for the fourth management plan. And then the fifth management plan starts in 2025, and that's the one that has the hard number reduction. The negotiations that General Manager Cook was able to do allowed us, rather than having a hard number in 2025 to go from 4,900 to 4,200, was to give us a period of 5 to 7 years to work on reducing our water usage. And I'm really hopeful that if the South Projects is approved in its current thought process, that it may be the last one that we have to do. Because with the lake being relined and what we're doing at Quail and South are going to go a long ways towards getting us to that 4,500 acre foot number. So.
Okay. Given this clarification, this would be good information from a communication standpoint. It might lessen some of the questions that arise. So just as a thought from a communication standpoint, to provide this detail, you might not get people up here like me. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Lorraine Shalaba.
145957. You know, the more meetings I come to, the more overwhelmed I feel, because this last person who was up here said communication is an issue. Communication seems to be an issue that goes through everything. You know, it was a communication issue with the libraries. It was a communication issue with Bell, the pool. Nobody was ever notified that there was going to be an extension to the pool being closed, other than the signs on the doors. So I talked to the ladies inside and said, "Are you getting any phone calls?" And she said, yes, they got 30 phone calls one day and 40 phone calls another day. I would not support this proposition because I think those people are going to be fantastically disappointed. I have, as time goes on, I'm developing less and less confidence in the ability for success in communication and in actual performance of the deeds that need to be done. You know, when you close the Bell Pool, one of the things that I understood was Marionette had a water issue, so I went there. And, you know, to save water, your water, what I did was I took a shower. Well, I put my shampoo in my hair, and I went to all the showers, and I went to the first shower, and it was cold water, so I turned it off. I went to the second shower, turned it on. It was cold water. I turned it off. I went to the third shower. It was cold water. I turned it off. Went to the fourth shower. It was cold water. I turned it off. So my choice was either walk out with shampoo in my hair or continue a shower in cold water. So I continued the shower, and when I went outside and talked to the person at the desk, I said, "You have no hot water in the ladies' shower." And he said, "Oh, I can fix it, I can fix it." He got all nervous, and I said, "I want to fill out a card." And he said, "No, don't fill out a card." I said, "Oh, yes, just by your response requires me to fill out a card." So it's just the more you know what you're doing is you're reinforcing my lack of confidence for the board, for the process. I think all these people at Quail Run are going to be very disappointed, and I think you should cut back on your projects. I understand there's a water issue, and it's going on the wall and deteriorating that wall and causing it. Maybe you can just turn off a couple of those water sprinklers there, but to take on such a huge project, I'll be honest with you, I don't have the confidence in that it could get done properly. So I wouldn't support it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else, Marcia?
Yeah,
Okay.
Mark Crackle, if that's how you say it, I can't read you. I think it is.
Mark Crashell, 129391. I agree that Quail definitely needs some love it leaks. And I've played the course, but I don't know, I'm a little late to the game on this. Is there an opportunity to maybe turn that course, as long as it's being torn up, into maybe an 18-hole pitch and putt course? Has that been looked at? I mean, with that 500-yard second hole, can't like 400 or 500-yard holes be put in there? Could we increase play by making it into a pitch and putt course? I mean, after all, the whole course is being tore up. Quail gets the least amount of play, only 12,000 year-to-date holes, and based on the average cost of golf in Sun City, it's a 7.7-year payback for this expense. So I agree, Quail needs some love, but are there alternatives? Could the first hole be turned into pickleball courts and start the course on hole number 2? I'm just throwing it out there. So anyway, I have an appointment to have my oil changed, so we'll let somebody else use my minute and 52 seconds.
Thank you.
Madam President, everyone spoke who signed up on this motion.
Thank you very much. Is there any discussion by the directors?
Director Geis? One thing that was just reminding me by Director Borski is one of the concepts we're also talking about with Quail Run. Quail Run has a cement path going 360 degrees all the way around the course. And one of the things we've been discussing in the long-range planning is the possibility of shutting down the course at certain times, because it is a lower-used course than other ones, to allow members to walk through the course on the path. This is one of the things that was brought up from the ASU survey, and we think this would be a good use of the course also after the renovations have been complete.
And isn't it true this is a 9-hole course? So for some of our members who are not able or wanting to play 18 holes, they might prefer this course?
Yes, a certain number of people do that. Instead of going to a long course and playing 9 holes there, because on the long courses it's still a much greater distance. A lot of these holes, there's only 2 par 4s and 1 par 5 on this course, Brian? And so though there are 6 par 3s now anyhow? Yeah. So it's a much shorter course than any of the other ones you could easily play 9 holes on, yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments by the directors? Director Foster.
Well, I would echo what Director Keist just said. Thank you for bringing up the walking path concept, because I do think that's something that we don't want to get lost in the remodeling of this course. I am a little concerned about the use of the term renovation, because it's not really a renovation, is it? In the sense that we're just trying to address a water issue here mostly. There is some things that are lined out here in furnishings and clubhouse, but those are minor dollar amounts in the grand scheme of things. The main thing here is trying to address the water situation that the irrigation system is. This previous gentleman who on his way to get his oil changed said it needs some love, and that is a very tactful way to put it. We were just out on this course for the USGA review, and we saw multiple leaks on multiple holes. So that irrigation system needs to be replaced no matter what. And then when you start to look at what this redoing the fairways, the tough turf, and its ability to withstand heat, its ability to use less water, its ability to not necessarily require overseeding because its dormancy is a much shorter period. You know, there are some real long-term cost savings, not just water savings, but cost savings that are going to take place here that in hopefully the long run, as this turf matures, this course is going to be run at a perhaps lower cost than it is right now, enhancing the payback of this investment. One other item that was mentioned was this concern that we were allocating all our funds for Mountain View and the potential PAC, and there is a large number for those two projects. But the simple fact of the matter is, those have to be sort of dollar cost averaged, if you will, across time. We're not going to do that all in one period. This is just not feasible. So those projects, as we get to them, are going to be spread out across time so that indeed we don't exhaust that PIF account, that we are going to get new contributions to it, we are going to earn interest on the invested balances, and that the amounts that we take will be and spend from that account will be carefully monitored so that the balance of that account remains healthy for future projects going forward. So I think it's not really true to argue that you can't do those things because you're going to exhaust this account. We're well aware of that situation, and those projects are going to be scaled and pushed through time so that, in fact, we address that very issue and don't exhaust the account.
Thank you. Additional comments or final comments from the directors? Secretary Rick Meyer, please take the roll call vote.
Director Borski.
Treasurer.
Sorry, Treasurer Borski, I apologize.
Okay, wait a minute, I gotta stop and think here. Yes.
Director Keiss?
Yes.
I have to ask you. Director Collins?
Yes.
Vice President McAdam?
Yes.
Director Ruff?
Yes.
Director Foster?
Yes.
Director Nedesheim?
Yes.
President Fimmel?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So with vote of 9 yes and 0 no's.
With a unanimous vote, the motion passes its first reading. The next motion is from Director Ruff. Director Ruff, please read your motion.
I move to amend Board Policy Number 21, titled Membership Documentation Requirements, paragraph C, titled Occupancy, as follows. Occupancy: each individual qualified by ownership and age must also qualify as occupying the property as their primary Arizona residence by providing one of the following. Number 1, a valid Arizona driver's license having the same address as the property for which a member card is sought. And then we add this language, and the property listed with Maricopa County as primary residence, not rental or other status. It deletes paragraph 2, which said a valid Arizona driver's license having an address further than 75 miles from Sun City, Arizona. The 75 miles was really just a number snatched out of the air. There's no logic or basis. Could have been 50, could have been 100. But requiring that the Maricopa County document says that you're using it as your primary address, we think is much more valid than worrying about how far away the driver's license address is. So that's a change that was requested and worked on with the senior leader for finance and his staff. In paragraph 5, owners who misrepresent themselves as an occupant of a property shall be subject to suspension of member privileges. This suspension automatically extends to all owners of the said property as well as any occupants of any other properties owned by such owners, including denial of use of any and all RCSC facilities. And then new language, and any issued privilege cards as determined by the board. So we're trying to simplify this for our staff to validate that the occupancy is what it should be. And we think this is a much simpler way of doing so.
Is there a second?
Second.
Treasurer Borski seconds the motion. Director Ruff is maker of the motion. Do you wish to speak to it?
Yes, I will. As I said, we worked with Kevin's staff and Kevin to figure this out. We went round in circles for a while trying to figure out a better way to address it. And then the Maricopa County as primary residence filed legally, I think is much more responsive than trying to figure out somebody's driver's license. You can go change your address with your driver's license every month if you want. You're not going to change your property status with the Maricopa County unless you're selling it or changing use. And then if you're changing use, we'll know about it.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson, please read the names of any members who signed up to speak on this motion only.
Madam President, no one signed up to speak on this motion.
Thank you. Are there any comments from the directors?
Yes, Madam President.
Director Collins.
My only question is when I purchased my home in Sun City, I had my home in New York. So my primary residence was in New York. And that's where your property taxes and everything when you file is your primary residence. So until I actually moved to Arizona, I'm just confused at this is a summer property for a lot of, or winter property for a lot of folks, but their main permanent resident is in another state. How is this going to affect them?
Steve doesn't have his book.
Can we have Kevin address this?
Director Collins, this really wouldn't apply there because you would not have recorded the Sun City property as a rental, right? You would have recorded it as a residence, primary residence. And then once you got your Arizona driver's license with your Sun City property address on it, at that point you would be able to get a member card to access the facilities. So what this is trying to do is just be very clear that if a property is recorded with the county as a rental property, that would not be considered primary residence for purposes of determining member in good standing.
Treasurer Borski.
Kevin, to go along with that, when we bought our home here as Snowbirds, our home was not listed as primary, it was listed as seasonal.
Mm-hmm.
And we had out-of-state driver's licenses. So this would not impact that.
Correct.
Okay. Even the seasonal would be the same, acted in the same way as permanent?
It's recorded the same way.
Okay.
Any additional discussion by the directors? Director Keiss.
And also to answer Director Collins' Director Collins' question, number 3 is still involved in this. It says one of the qualifying license or things you can have is a valid out-of-state driver's license or out-of-country driver's license. So for the people like him that have a primary residence out of state, they can show their out-of-state license and still get the privilege card. So that doesn't affect them at all.
Any further director comments? Vice President McAdam.
So all of a sudden, I'm a little bit confused about this. So let's say somebody has an out-of-state driver's license, and this is a property that they actually use when they're in Arizona, but when they're not here, they rent it out in order to recapture some of the costs that they have. What impact would that have?
So what would happen there, Director, is that when the renter came in with a valid rental agreement for that property, at that point the member card of the owner is turned off and deactivated, and then we would issue a privilege card for the renters. So that's preventing that from having multiple outstanding membership cards for a property that is being rented out.
Okay.
So if I may ask, just to be clear for the membership, what is the underlying purpose of this process?
It's to address a lot of confusion around folks that are coming in that own property in Sun City, but also have a home more than 75 miles away, which is, as Director Ruff mentioned, kind of an arbitrary delineation there. If you live in Flagstaff, as an example, if you have a house in Flagstaff and you also have a house in Sun City, you come in with your Arizona driver's license with the Flagstaff address, that is currently outside of this 75-mile radius, and you're fine. You qualify to get a member card. But if you have a home in Prescott, which is, I believe, less than 75 miles, then you would not qualify, right? Because your primary residence is within that 75-mile radius. And it just causes a lot of confusion at cardholder services around whether people are qualified as members or not. So by requiring that Arizona driver's license and eliminating that 75-mile radius, it just makes things a lot clearer and easier from the purpose or from the standpoint of determining membership.
Madam President?
Director Collins.
So if I own a house in Sun City and I buy one in Peoria, then I could live in Peoria as my main address, but yet I could come into Sun City and use all of the amenities as a member, correct?
Correct, if you're not renting that Sun City property out, Director Collins. So you own a home in Sun City, you've paid a PIF and a SIF, you're paying your annual assessment, you're not renting that house out, then you would be able to get a membership card. And again, that's the simplification here, is that we're eliminating that arbitrary 75-mile rule that's currently in place.
But you also said I could rent it and it would turn off my privileges?
That's correct.
When they leave, like, my privileges will come back?
Correct. Assuming you're not re-renting it.
Thank you.
Director Nedersheim.
Kevin, so let me take the Flagstaff example. The way I'm reading this, and maybe I'm reading it incorrectly, but the way I'm reading this, it says you have to have the same address as the property for which the member card is sought on your Arizona driver's license. Now, if you live in Flagstaff and you have you now have a Flagstaff address, this used to allow you to come get a member card for your house. And there are a lot of people that summer in Flagstaff, winter in the valley.
Mm-hmm.
By removing that, it feels like we're actually now saying if you don't have the same address as the property for which you're getting a card, these people can no longer use their property and get a card. That's the way I'm reading it. Maybe it's wrong, maybe I'm misunderstanding what I'm reading, but that is the way that I am reading it.
We should say Arizona driver's license. That just, having address needs to be removed.
It feels to me like we're actually limiting access, not expanding access, the way I'm reading it.
No, I agree with that. I think the intent was, as Kevin was initially explaining, you own a home, you've paid the PIF, you paid the SIF, you're up to date with your assessments. There's no reason to have that 75-mile thing in there. You are a member in good standing.
That's your driver's license as property.
I understand that. So I agreed with what you say is maybe this does need a little bit of a tweak, because really the criteria, at least as I understood Kevin's comments, were you need to be a member in good standing, you need to own property, you need to have paid your fees and assessments, and you're good to go.
Yeah, I think, Director Nedersheim, you have a valid point. When I'm rereading this, I think we need to tweak it to basically allow for that situation, right? Because if you have an Arizona, if you own two homes and you have your driver's license address at the other home, then we'll have to carve that out.
Okay, thank you.
Given this fact, Director Ruff, do you have a request perhaps to withdraw this motion?
I don't want to withdraw it, but I would like to, I can't think of the right word, but
Amend? Table?
not table, postpone to the next meeting.
Are you making a motion to postpone this
I make the
motion?
motion to postpone to the next meeting.
Is there a second for the postponement of this motion?
second.
Second by Treasurer Borski. Is there discussion? I think we had the discussion. Would you please take a vote on the motion to postpone, Secretary Rickmeyer?
Treasurer Borski?
Yes.
Director Keiss?
Yes.
Director Collins?
Yes.
Vice President McAdam?
Yes.
Director Ruff?
Yes.
Director Foster?
Yes.
Director Nettesheim?
Yes.
President Fimmel?
Yes.
And I vote yes, so vote of 9 yes and 0 no's.
Then it is a unanimous vote to withdraw this motion. I mean, is there a unanimous vote to postpone this motion? My apologies for that. Okay. And the next motion is also from Director Ruff. Director Ruff, please read your motion.
I move to amend Board Policy Number 3, Title Corporate Records, Section A, Number 8, as follows. After completing review of documents, members may request to have copies of a particular document which may or may not be granted by the board. There may be a charge for copies and such other additional charges as permitted by law. And if approved, the new language is if approved, members may take photos of documents. Everybody's got a cell phone, they can take a picture of it, and it simplifies the process. And the only reason that's the motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second it.
Seconded by Director Keiss. Director Ruff, would you like to speak to the motion?
I would. One of the reasons I looked at this policy was that corporate records was addressed in bylaws previously, and when they made the change back to a policy, they left the heading records in that section of the bylaws, but there was no reference to records under that paragraph. So that made me look at this, and talking with the folks that work in that area, that's one of the things they get requests for. And we just thought it made sense to make that simple change, and it helps members get copies of what they want.
Ms. Johnson, please read the name of members who signed up to speak on this motion only.
Lorraine Shalaba? No? Madam President, there's no one to speak on this motion.
Thank you. Is there any discussion by the directors? Director Foster.
Director Ruff, the proposed language says if approved. And what is the purpose of if approved?
There are things that the office apparently doesn't want to print. If you read 8, first sentence, after completing review of document, members may request to have copies of a particular document which may or may not be granted by the board. And I don't know what the distinguishing factor there is, because I don't know what the exact records are. But we're talking corporate records. They may have asked for minutes from
hearings,
executive session or a hearing or something. They can't have those. And that's why it's, if approved, we can let them take a photo of the document that they want. But it would have to be something that...
Understood. Thank you.
That fits.
Thank you. Any further discussion by the directors? Vice President McAdam.
So how would that actually work out in reality? Does that mean that somebody has to surrender any equipment capable of taking a photo when they are allowed to look at the document, and they can retrieve it if they get permission? Or how would that actually go down?
Kevin, is that yours? Is that your area?
I don't know if that's an enforceable.
Well, if you're saying that the document is approved to be reviewed by the member, you're essentially saying that the member has access to that information, so taking a picture of it should not be.
I think the approval is to get a copy of it. Is that correct?
Yes.
To see it.
Yes.
Yeah, just to see
May
it.
request to have copies of a particular document.
I think, again, the wording here is a little unclear. The beginning of 8, where it says, after completing review of the documents, that means we decide whether or not those documents, like you said, are eligible to be reviewed. So if someone came in and asked for a copy of a personnel file or some sort of minutes of meetings that were executive session, we would say, no, those aren't appropriate. That's the first step. So once it passes that hurdles, then they can request to have a copy, and now we're just trying to clear that up, whether or not that has to be a copy on a copy machine, or they can simply take a picture of it.
Yes.
If you're releasing it for their review, and they choose or elect to take a photo rather than receive a copy, they should be able to do either.
Yes.
Secretary Rickmeyer.
Is it possible in saying the word approved, if requested, members may take photo of documents? Or
they have to be documents that are approved to be given to the members.
Well, they wouldn't have been able to see them at that point if it was not approved. That's the first sentence, basically says they complete review of the documents, they may request copies. Okay, I guess. All right, so then I guess leave it.
Treasurer Borski?
Maybe that last sentence should, or not the last sentence, the second sentence, should say members may take photos of documents or be charged for copies.
Are we objectionable if it's one copy of, I mean, I guess it depends on how many pages they're receiving.
That's why there might be a charge.
In other words, you can get free photos, but if you want to, you can take 20 free photos, but if you want 20 pages, you'll be charged for it. Or whatever the number is.
Does the motion say that?
No, I'm saying maybe it should say that. Should be amended.
Well,
Director Nedeshine.
I think we need to be careful because I think what we can and cannot charge for is actually directed by law. So I think that's what this is implying as by law, just like when you go to your doctor's office and you have to have your records transferred by law, they're allowed to charge you X number of dollars for transferring that record to your new doctor's office. And I think it's actually dictated by law what we can and can't charge for. So I don't know that we want to, I think it's worded very specifically because of that.
President Fimmel?
Yes, General Manager.
I would suggest maybe we do the same with this as the last one, postpone it, and we'll clarify the language for the next meeting.
Director Ruff?
I move that we postpone.
Second. By whom?
A second.
By Director Nedesheim. And discussion. I think we've had discussion. Secretary Rickmeyer, please take the vote on postponing this motion.
Treasurer Borski?
Yes.
Director Keiss?
Yes.
Director Collins?
Yes.
Vice President McAdam?
Yes.
Director Ruff?
Yes.
Director Foster?
Yes.
Director Nedesheim?
Yes.
President Fimmel?
Yes.
And I vote yes, so 9 yes and 0 no's.
By unanimous vote, this motion has been postponed. The next exchange meeting will be held here on June 10th at 1 p.m. I'm going to repeat that for the folks that are going to see this at home. The next exchange meeting will be held here June 10th at 1 p.m. as requested by membership to have an afternoon meeting. We're not able to do that with our board meetings because this room is taken on Thursday afternoons of board meeting. The next meeting of the Board of Directors will be held on June 27th here at 9 a.m. The annual member meeting will be held here at Sundial, March 11, 2025, at 6 p.m. There being no further business and without objection, this meeting is adjourned. Have a great day, and please turn your electronic devices back on. Thank you.
This is a copyrighted production of the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated and is intended for the sole purpose of informing our Recreation Center members. Any duplication, copying, transmission, broadcast, or use, including electronic and social media, is strictly prohibited without the prior written consent from the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated. Thank you for watching.